Next, we will discuss about JavaScript control flow statements. JavaScript control flow statements. What is the use of control flow statements in our JavaScript? A statement is a program or instruction in computing system which is used to control the execution flow. The statements are built by using expressions and keywords. We will see an example how we can use these control flow statements. First, we will make a note about this. A statement is a program instruction in computing system used to control the execution flow. The statements are built by using expressions and keywords. We will discuss about the types of the statements. The statements in JavaScript are classified into following types. We have first selection statements. Selection statements are if, else, switch, and case. All this will be considered as selection statements. Next we have jump statements. Jump statements. We have break, comma, continue, comma, return. All these are jump statements. We will see in depth with examples where we can use these selection statements and how we can use it, and jump statements where we can use it, how we can use it. We will see in detail with example. First, we will discuss about if statement. if statement is a decision making statement which is used to execute set of statements based on the given boolean expression. First we will make a note about this. It is a decision making statement used to execute a set of statements based on the given boolean expression. And also our if statement, it comprises of following approaches. We have some approaches. Those are first one, forward jump. Next we have simple decision. Next we have multi-level decision. Next we have nested decisions. All these approaches with example. First we will see forward jump. Forward jump, it is an approach that statements are executed only when the given condition evaluates to boolean true. It doesn't provide any alternative flow. It simply terminates the task. This is how our if condition, our if statement forward jump is executed. First it will come to condition. If condition is true, then it will execute conditional code. If condition is false, then it will execute our else code. We will see how we can work with our if else statement. Just go to Visual Studio Code, go to JavaScript folder, create a file c1.html. Inside this, doc type HTML, inside this head tag, and we have body tag. Inside body tag I will create a div tag. Inside this div tag I will use field set. Inside this field set I will use legend, install game, I will use a data list. Inside this data list I will use data term, select available hard disk, space. For this I will use data definition. Inside this I will use select tag. For this I will give ID. ID I will give as LST latest HDD hard disk. I will use an on change event. After writing my function I will call from this. Here I will use option. I will give value as 2. This is for 2 GB. Option value, this is for 5 GB. option value. This is for 10 GB. I will use data term, select available RAM. Then I will use data definition, input tag with type number. I will use minimum value as 1, maximum value as 8, value as 1. I will give some ID, txt RAM. First I will make it disabled. Then I will use on change event. After writing my function, I will call from this. Then I will create one more data term. Inside this I will use is graphic card available or not. I will use data definition. Inside this I will use select and I will use options. Inside option, this is for yes option and I have another option as no. For this select I will give ID as LST graphic disabled on change. After writing function I will call from this. For this option I will give a value yes. Then for this option I will give a value no. After this data definition I will use line break br. Then I will use input tag, type I will give as button and ID I will give as btn install. I will give value as install disabled on click install. After writing my function I will call from this. Just close this tag. What I am doing here is in browser user will select a hard disk range like 2 GB hard disk, 5 GB hard disk, 10 GB hard disk. I am providing 3 options. User will select that. By using this select ID is equal to LSTHDD. By using this ID I will store it and I will return a value. Same as I have given an option to select a RAM and I have given an option to select a graphic card. Then I have to write script for this. Inside the script function select hard disk. Inside this function I will use var lst hdd is equal to document dot get element by id lst hdd. I will use another variable var txt ram is equal to document dot get element by id. Inside this I will use txt ram. Next I will use if condition here. Here I will use parse int lsthdd dot value. I will explain you after writing code what we are doing. Greater than or equal to 5. In this txt ram dot disabled is equal to false. lsthdd dot disabled is equal to true. Then I will write one more function, select ram inside this function where txt or ram is equal to document dot get element by id txt ram, where lst graphic equal to document dot get element by id lst graphic. Here I will use if condition txt ram dot value greater than or equal to 4. Inside this I will write lst graphic dot disabled is equal to false. txt ram dot disabled is equal to true. Next I will write function for graphics. Function select graphic. Inside this select graphic function where lst graphic is equal to document dot get element by id. Inside this I will use lst graphic where btn install is equal to document dot get element by id btn install. Here I will use if condition. Inside this I will write lst graphic dot value is equal to double equal to yes. btn install dot disabled is equal to false. lst graphic dot disabled is equal to true. Then I will write one more function, install I will write document dot write game installed successfully. What we are doing here is, in my browser I want to make this page to select hard disk and RAM and graphic card. and I'm using button. In this button, I will use my function. We have written three functions. One function is for hard disk and one function is for RAM and one function is for graphics and one function is for install. So whenever it comes to select available hard disk, here in onChange event we have to write the function which is related to hard disk. You have to call this function from this hard disk. Next you have RAM. In this you have to call this function select RAM. Next graphic, you have to write in select graphic. Next you have install function. Just copy it. You have to call it from button. What we are doing is, whenever user has selected some hard disk from these three options, then our onChange event will be executed. Then this function will be executed, select hard disk. Control goes to my select hard disk function. Inside this, I am storing hard disk and RAM related information in these variables. And my hard disk related information, I am converting it by using parseInt. If it is greater than or equal to 5, I am disabling text ram.disabled is equal to false. I am disabling RAM option. Here, whenever user has selected has more than 5, then I want to use disable option with false. Then hard disk I want to use true. That means whatever the hard disk he has selected 5, he cannot change it after selecting. Then whenever it comes to RAM, here we are storing RAM and graphic card. And if RAM is selected more than, like in a if condition I am using RAM dot value is greater than or equal to 4, I want to disable my RAM. I want to disable my RAM option. That's the reason I am using txt ram dot disabled is equal to true. Then this RAM option will be disabled. You cannot unselect it. You cannot change it after that. And LST graphic I am not disabling it. That's the reason I am using false. Then whenever our select graphic is executed, here I am disabling install. Here I am using false for install option and I am using graphic.disabled equal to true. If I use lst graphic.disabled is equal to true, after selecting graphic, he cannot change it or even user cannot undo it because button will be disabled by mentioning it as true. Then whenever we click on button install, my install function will be executed with game installed successfully. Just save it, Ctrl S. Go to browser. Our web page name is c1.html. c1.html. This is our web page. Here what we are doing, for only select available hard disk, this is enabled. All these options are disabled because we are using disable option in our function. That's the reason it is disabled. After selecting that, after selecting hard disk option, then I want to enable select RAM. After selecting RAM, then I want to enable select graphic. Before selecting RAM, I should not give access to select graphic. That's the reason I am using disabled option. Just go to browser. Now after selecting my RAM, after selecting my hard disk, it will show me RAM. I am selecting 5 GB as hard disk. After giving 5 GB hard disk, my hard disk option is disabled because I am using hard disk.lsthdd.disabled is equal to true. That's the reason disabled is equal to true. By using this, my hard disk option is disabled. Now I am selecting RAM as some 4. After selecting, this is also disabled because in if condition I am using txt ram.disabled is equal to true. Next, I am using, after selecting yes, then my install button is enabled and graphic card available is disabled because you cannot change it, because I am using disabled is option this hard disk dot disabled is equal to true. Then whenever I click on install, it is showing me game installed successfully. This is how we can work with if condition. Next we will see how we can work with multiple conditions in selection. We will see how we can work with multiple conditions in selection. This is nothing but a writing if-else conditions more than true. It is a programming technique used to provide multiple choices, and this technique checks every condition individually by using if else and else. You can write multiple conditions inside this. It allows to execute the condition that is matching with given expression and performs execution of statements. We will see an example how to work with multiple conditions in selection. Just go to Visual Studio Code, JavaScript, new file, c2.html, doc type HTML. Inside head tag, we have head tag and we have body. Inside body, we have div tag. Inside div, we have field set. Inside field set, we have legend. Inside I will use payment. Then I am using data list, data term, name on card, data definition. Inside this I will use input, type as text. I will give ID as txt name. I will use one more data term. This is for PIN or OTP. Value, submit, on click. After writing function, I will call those functions from my on click event. Here I will use br. Next I will use a div tag. Inside this I will use align. I will use center. I will give ID as msg. Here I want to print the message. That's the reason I am using this. Now we will write a function for this. What we are doing here is I am creating a payment page with username and pin code. I want to verify it. We can verify it by using JavaScript. I will write a script tag inside script. I will write a function submit, click. Inside this function I will create a variable user details is equal to username JOH and John, pin 405, comma OTP 567890. I want to verify with these user details. Next I will use var txt name is equal to document dot get element by id txt name dot value where txt code is equal to document dot get element by id txt code dot value. Next I want to create variable msg is equal to document dot get element by id msg. After this I want to write if else condition, multiple if else conditions. I want to check whatever the user is typing in my browser. I want to check with this user details. I want to check with this user details whether it is matching or not by using if else conditions. In if conditions I will use user details dot username is double equal to txt name. Inside this I will write another if condition user details dot txt code. Inside this I want to print msg dot inner html is equal to pin verified. Else if inside this else if I want to check user details dot OTP double equal to txt code. Inside this I want to print message dot inner html equal to OTP verified. Next I want to write else condition. Inside this else condition I want to print msg dot inner html is equal to OTP invalid OTP. After this I will write else statement. Inside this I will write msg dot inner html is equal to invalid user name. What we are doing here is we are checking whatever the user is giving username and password, we are checking with our user details object details, I'm checking with username, PIN and OTP. I'm giving some name, some PIN and OTP. That I'm checking with if else condition. If user details dot username double equal to text name, if username got verified, then it will come inside if condition. After coming inside, it will check user details dot txt code. If txt code is verified, then it will print pin verified. After that, if user details is checking by using OTP, then it will check by using else if user details dot OTP double equal to text code is equal to msg dot inner HTML. If it is verified, it will show message as OTP verified. If user details whatever user is typing, if it is wrong, then our if condition will not be executed, else condition will be executed with invalid username. Just save it, Ctrl S, c2.html, go to browser, execute our code, c2.html. Just type a wrong name first. I'm typing my name, Hemant. Whenever I type, I forgot to call my function, submit click, copy it, go to function, on click event, save it. I will write some name, wrong name, Hemant. Whenever I click on submit, it is showing invalid username. Inside this, I am giving, it is checking user details, username with John. Now I will give correct username, JOHN. Whenever I click on submit, it is saying invalid OTP because I did not type any PIN or OTP. Now we have OTP. Now it is showing after user details dot username double equal to text name. After giving John, it is verified as true. That's why control came to inside if condition. Then it is checking my text code with PIN or OTP. I did not type, that's the reason it is showing me invalid OTP. Now we have OTP 567890. I will type correct OTP 567890. Whenever I click on submit, it is saying OTP verified. This is how we can work with multiple selection statements in if-else condition. Next we will discuss about switch statement. Switch statement. A switch in electronics is used to interrupt the flow of electrons. Whenever we switch on like electronic items, either it is fridge or TV or any fan, whenever we use those switches, it is used to interrupt the flow of electrons. Same as that, in a computer programming, a switch is used to control the execution flow. And the switch statement represents a selector switch, which executes only the set of statements that match the given value. We will see how to use switch statement in our JavaScript programming, and it defines the block of statements to execute by using case and default. We can write multiple cases. If any case is not matching with the statement, then default will be executed, and it uses a jump statement to terminate the execution, which can be break or return. We have break as a jump statement in our switch statement to jump the statement to termination. It will terminate the program of that case. First we will make a note about this. A switch in electronics is used to interrupt the flow of electrons. same as that in a computer programming. A switch is used to control the execution flow. The switch statement represents a selector switch which executes only the set of statements that match the given expression value. And it defines the blocks of statements to execute by using case and default. It uses a jump statement to terminate the execution, comma, which can be break or return. So this is how our switch statement works. First, our switch expression. If my case 1 is satisfying with my expression, then my case 1 will be executed. If my case 2 is satisfying, then case 2 will be executed as output. And if any case is not satisfying with my expression, means whatever the switch statement I am using with some expression, if it is not satisfying with any of these cases, the default case will be executed. Whatever the statements we have written with default, that will be executed as output. We will see an example how to work with switch statement. Just create a new file, JavaScript file, c3.html, doc type HTML, inside HTML, head section, and we have body section. Inside head section, script tag. Inside script tag, we have function f1. Inside this function, I will create a variable where x is equal to sum 0. Then I will use switch. For this, I will pass my x variable. Inside this, I will write cases, case 0, For case 0, I will write document dot write. Inside this, I will write 0. I will write one more case 1. I will write document dot write 1. I will write one more case case 2. Inside this, I will write document dot write. I will print 2. If any of this case is not matching, I will write default. In this default, I will write document dot write. Inside this, I will write enter numbers 0 to 2. Then I will use break statement for this case and also for this case. Just save it, Control S, go to browser. First we have to call this method f1, save it, Control S, c3.html, go to browser. Our page name is c3.html. So it is executing 0, 1. It is executing 0, 1 because when it comes to case 0, our document.write 0 will be executed, and it comes to case 1, 1 is executed. After this, I am using break. Then if we use break here, execution will be terminated. That's the reason case 2 and default will not be executed. If I remove this case 1 break, just observe it. Case 2 will be executed, then program will be terminated. Go to browser, refresh 0, 1, 2. This is how our break and switch statements we can use in our web page. For example, if I use a negative value like -2, now I will write break for case 0 and also case 1, case 2 and case 3. This default expression I will write after case 1. If I execute this, my expression is not, if I execute this, my negative value expression is not satisfying with case 0, case 1 and case 2. Then if it is not satisfying any cases, it will execute a default as enter numbers 0 to 2. Just refresh it, Control S, go to browser. Now it is saying enter number 0 to 2. My default expression is executing in my browser. Next we will see how we can work with for loop and while loop. For loop and while loop. Mainly in any programming language, looping is the process of executing a set of statements repeatedly until the given expression evaluates to true or false. Iteration is a software design pattern used to access elements from any collection in sequential order. For those operations JavaScript provided for loop and while loop. So we have for loop and while loop, but some people may confuse where to use for loop and where to use while loop. We will discuss about that. For loop is a looping control and iteration statement which is used to execute statements repeatedly and mostly for loop we use when number of iterations is known to us. When number of iterations known to us, then we have to use for loop. When to use while loop? When you don't know the number of iterations, then you have to use while loop. Means, for example, I am having 10 product elements like mobile or any TV and fridge or any washing machine. I'm having 10 elements. The 10 elements I want to iterate by using for loop because I know I am having 10 elements. When I know I'm having 10 elements to print as output, then I can go for loop. While loop, when we use while loop means, for example, I'm having some products, some elements. I don't know how many elements are there in my products. At that time, we have to go for while loop. This is how our for loop will be executed. When you first program will be started, then it will initialize. After that, it will check condition. If condition is true, it will execute statements. After that, it will increment the value. Then again condition. Then again statement will be executed. Again it will increment the value or decrement the value. Again it will check condition. Again it will be executed till the condition become false. It will be executed. Whenever our condition become false, then control comes to end. Our execution will be terminated. This is how for loop works in our JavaScript. And when you come for while loop's execution is also same as for loop, nothing difference, but you have to know where to use for loop and where to use while loop. For loop we use when we know the data and elements how many are there in our iteration. While loop you have to use when you don't know how many values or iterations or how many elements or how many objects you have in your iteration. If you don't know that, you have to go for while loop. Same start condition. If condition is true, statements will be executed. Again it will check condition, then it will execute statements. Again it will check condition, again it will execute statements. Here after condition become false, then it will end our execution. Our execution process will be terminated. This is how while loop works. We will see an example how to work with loops in our JavaScript. Just go to JavaScript, create a file c4.html, doc type HTML, inside we have head section and we have body section. Inside body section I will use div tag. Inside div tag I will use field set. Inside field set I will use legend. I will use some like names. Then I will use username. input type as text. I will give id as txt, name, then I will use a onKey up event. After writing my function, I will call from this event. Next, I will use a span tag. Inside this span tag, I will use id msg. Now let's go to head section. I will create a script tag. Inside the script tag, I will write a function check user. Inside this function, I will use where users is equal to, I will create some usernames like name, some John, name David, name some Dhoni, next name I will use some Raina, I will use some Rohit. I want to print all these names by using for loop. We will see how we can do this. Just come out of this array. Here I want to create where username is equal to document dot get element by id. Inside this I want to use text name id dot value. Then I will use where msg is equal to document dot get element by id msg. Here I am going to use for loop. Inside this for loop I will create where I is equal to 0. I will write a condition I is greater than users dot length, and I will increment this value. Inside this for loop I will use if condition. If username double equal to users I have to use index number dot name. If it is matching this, I want to print msg dot inner html is equal to username taken by another. Else I want to print msg dot inner html is equal to available. I want to print this. What we have written is user is typing some username, then I have to call my user check function from this on key up event. Save it. Whenever his user typing his username, by using on key up event, my function will be executed. Inside my function, I am having usernames like John, David, Dhoni, and Rohit. And whatever username is given from our browser, that will be stored in my username. And I am executing for loop. I am using message variable. Whatever I am storing in my message variable data, that will be printed in my span tag, because I am using id is equal to message, that I am using here document.get element by id. And here in for loop I am using username double equal to users I dot name. For example, this iteration is for index number I is equal to 0. In I is equal to 0 dot name, I am having John. If user has typed John, then I want to print as username is taken. If it is not John, if it is not the name from any of these users, then I will print available. This is the reason I am using for loop in this. Just save it, Ctrl S, go to browser, c4.html. We have to use return statements down, return. Just save it, go to browser, refresh it, JOHN. Whenever I type John, it is saying username is taken by another. I will type Hemant. Then Hemant is available because Hemant is not there in my users names. This is how we can use for loop in our web page. Now I will type Dhoni. If I type Dhoni, it is saying username taken by another, because Dhoni is available in my name section in my users. That's the reason it is showing me username taken by another. This is how we can work with for loop in our JavaScript. And while loop also, and while loop is same as for loop. Just here in for loop we know how many users are available in our data. In while loop we don't know how many users are available in our data. For loop is for continuous execution. This is how we can work with our for loop and while loop. Thank you.